They offered me $2 million to stay quiet. I laughed. ACT 1, Exposition. They told me my vote didn't matter. They were wrong, dead wrong. I'm sitting here in my kitchen, the same floral curtains I picked out 40 years ago swaying gently in the October breeze. My hands shake as I hold this coffee cup. I don't know if it's the arthritis or the memories. Probably both. I'm 72 years old, and over the past 3 years, I've learned that old age makes you invisible. People look right through you like you're a ghost walking among the living. But ghosts can see things that others can't. Let me start this the right way. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I've lived my entire life in this small Ohio town, Millbrook, population 14,000 souls. I was a history teacher for 38 years at the local high school. Married Thomas Mitchell in 1975, had 2 daughters, 5 grandchildren. An ordinary life. An American life. At least that's what I thought. I've always voted. Since I was 18 when the voting age was lowered in 1971, I've never missed an election. Presidential, municipal, even those school board ones that nobody cared about. Thomas used to laugh at me. "Sarah," he'd say, adjusting those glasses that always slipped down his nose, "you treat every vote like it's going to save the world." "Because it can," I'd reply. He died 3 years ago, sudden heart attack while mowing the lawn. He was 71 years old. He was dead before he reached the hospital. The first time I saw the algorithm, I thought it was a mistake. It wasn't. It was 6 months after the funeral. I was finally managing to go into his office, that small room in the basement he always called the bunker. Thomas was an accountant, but he had a strange hobby. He collected data. Endless spreadsheets, graphs covering the walls, numbers that made no sense to anyone but him. I was packing up his things for donation when I found his old laptop hidden behind a box of tax returns from 1998. I didn't know he still used it. The new one was sitting on the desk. Out of curiosity, I turned it on. The battery was dead, of course. I took it upstairs, plugged in the charger, and waited. The screen flickered to life, demanding a password. I tried the usual ones, birthdays, grandchildren's names. Nothing worked. I was about to give up when I remembered. Thomas always used old song lyrics as passwords. I tried Imagineelthit People. Nothing. Blowing Ginthuend. Nothing. Then I tried Thienswermefriend. I was in. The desktop was clean except for one folder called Patterns Do Not Open. My heart raced. Thomas was never one for dramatics. If he wrote Do Not Open, he had a reason. I clicked. Inside were hundreds of files. Excel spreadsheets with names like 2016 discrepancies, 2018 patterns, 2020 anomalies, PDF files of technical reports, some with the letterhead of the company where he'd worked as a consultant after retiring from teaching, Word documents with scanned handwritten notes. I opened one at random. Statistical Analysis, Fairfield County, Ohio 2016 presidential election. What I saw made me sit down. It was a graph showing actual election results versus results predicted by a mathematical model. The lines should have diverged. Elections are unpredictable, human. But these lines were nearly identical. 99.7% accuracy. Impossible. I scrolled down, more counties, same pattern, all of Ohio, then Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. All the swing states. All with the same impossible pattern. My grandson asked me why I still voted. That question cost him everything. Jake was 22, last year of computer science at Ohio State. Messy hair, always wearing headphones, that type of young person who lives half in the real world and half in some digital space I'll never fully understand. He'd been visiting me every week since Thomas died. I think he felt guilty. He and his grandfather had been close, and Jake wasn't here when it happened. He was at a hackathon in Chicago, doing whatever it is these kids do. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I'd just shown him the files. We spread everything out on the kitchen table, laptop, printouts, my own notes. Jake had been silent for 20 minutes, just typing frantically, cross-referencing data. Finally, he took off his headphones. "Grandma," he said, his voice strange. This isn't a natural voting pattern. This is algorithmic prediction. Someone had a model that was predicting results before they happened." "How is that possible?" I asked. He rubbed his eyes. "There are companies that collect voter data, every Google search, every Facebook like, every online purchase. They build psychological profiles. They can predict how you'll vote with 90% accuracy. But this," he pointed at the screen, "this is different. This isn't prediction. It's too precise." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying someone wasn't just predicting votes. They were manipulating them." The words hung in the air between us like smoke. "Did Grandpa know this?" Jake asked softly. I picked up one of the document's notes in Thomas's handwriting, dated 2 weeks before he died. "Need to talk to someone. This is bigger than I thought. Can't stay quiet." My hands trembled holding the paper. "Yes," I whispered, "he knew. The government said it was a technical glitch. I knew it was a lie." Jake spent the next 48 hours in the basement, practically living at Thomas's laptop. I'd bring down sandwiches, coffee, and sometimes just sit there, watching my grandson dismantle what appeared to be the very structure of American democracy. He discovered the names of the companies: Civic Data Solutions, a subsidiary of a larger conglomerate; government contracts; connections to voting machine manufacturers; a corporate maze designed specifically to obscure who owned what. "They were testing," Jake said on the third night, eyes red from lack of sleep. "2016 was a test. That's why Grandpa noticed the patterns. They were still calibrating. But 2020, he showed me new graphs. 2020 was almost perfect. Nobody noticed because they adjusted the margin of error to look natural." "And 2024, I asked. The election was 6 weeks away." Jake looked at me, and for the first time since he was a child, I saw real fear in his eyes. "Grandma, if they've perfected this, the election is already decided. It doesn't matter who people vote for. The algorithm has already chosen the winner." I felt something break inside me. 72 years of voting, 72 years of believing, 72 years of teaching my students that their voices mattered. "All a lie. We need to expose this," I said. "Grandma, these people, if they killed Grandpa." "We don't know they killed him." "Do you really believe it was an accident?" The silence answered for me. ACT2, conflict. I found the evidence in my dead husband's old laptop. He knew. It took us 2 more weeks to compile everything. Jake connected every dot: money flows, government contracts, the shell companies, everything. He built a presentation with 247 slides that proved, beyond a shadow of doubt, that the last 3 American presidential elections had been manipulated. Not grossly, not like third world dictatorships. It was elegant, sophisticated, just enough to tilt swing states by 1–2%, margins too small to raise suspicion, too large to be accidental. "We need a journalist," I said. "Someone big, New York Times, Washington Post." Jake shook his head. "Already tried, sent anonymous emails to 5 investigative reporters. None responded. Either they don't believe it or they're afraid." "Yeah." I looked at all those documents spread across my basement. Thomas's life's work for the last few years. He died for this. It had to mean something. "Then we go directly to the public," I said. Jake laughed, but without humor. "Grandma, no offense, but you have 127 Facebook followers. Most of them are church people." "Then teach me. Aren't you always talking about things going viral?" He studied me. That look young people get when they realize you're not as technologically useless as they assumed. "There are ways," he said slowly, "but it's risky. Once something's on the internet, it can't be erased. That also means they'll know who leaked it. Good, I said. I want them to know. They offered me $2 million to stay quiet. I laughed in their faces. The man showed up at my door 3 days after Jake started building our digital campaign. It was a Saturday morning. I was watering my petunias, the last flowers before the winter frost. He was young, maybe 35, expensive suit, smile that didn't reach his eyes. He held a leather briefcase. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said, "my name is David Carson. I represent Civic Data Solutions. Can we talk?" My blood ran cold, but I forced a smile. "How do you know my name?" "We're a data company, ma'am. It's our job to know." He said it like it was a joke. It wasn't. I should have slammed the door, should have called the police. Instead, I let him in. I wanted to look into the eyes of the kind of person who steals democracies. We sat in my living room. He declined tea, got straight to the point. "We know you have certain files belonging to your late husband. We understand you're considering making them public." "What if I am?" He opened the briefcase. Inside, a check. I picked it up, $2 million made out in my name. "This is a gesture of good faith," he said. "We believe there's been a misunderstanding about the nature of your husband's work. The files you have show proprietary business practices that, out of context, could be misinterpreted. We'd like to acquire them back. For the right price." I looked at the check, then at him. "My husband died 3 years ago." "Yes, tragic. Sudden heart attack, perfectly healthy man. These things happen, unfortunately. My daughter Jen hasn't spoken to me in 2 years. Political disagreements, but she has 3 children I barely see." He blinked, confused by the subject change. "My grandson Jake, the one who's helping me, he has dreams, wants to create technology that helps people, believes the internet can make the world better." I smiled. Idealistic youth. "Mrs. Mitchell, you want to know if I'll take $2 million to betray everything I've ever believed in, to spit on my husband's grave, to teach my grandson that principles are for sale?" I tore the check in half. "Get out of my house." His face hardened. The veneer of professionalism cracked. "You're making a mistake. Wouldn't be the first time." He stood, tucked away the briefcase. At the door, he turned. "Elderly people have so many accidents, Mrs. Mitchell. Falls downstairs, forgetting the stove is on, wrong medications." His voice was casual, like he was commenting on the weather. "It would be a shame if something happened to you, or your grandson." After he left, I sat shaking for 20 minutes, not from fear, from pure rage. The night they came for me, I was baking cookies for my granddaughter. Millie, my youngest granddaughter, was 6 years old. She was coming to visit that Sunday with her mother, my daughter Rebecca, the only one who still spoke to me. Chocolate chip were Millie's favorites. It was 8 p.m. on Saturday. Jake had gone out to get pizza. I was in the kitchen, old Beatles music playing on the radio, hands in the dough. The house smelled like brown sugar and vanilla. First, the lights flickered. Then the basement door opened. I was certain I'd locked it. "Jake," I called, "did you come back?" Silence. I grabbed the rolling pin, not much of a weapon, but it was what I had, and went down the stairs slowly. My bad knee protested every step. The basement was empty, but Thomas's laptop was gone. The paper files gone, our notes, printouts, backup flash drives. Everything. I'd been so stupid, thought locking the door would be enough. I was climbing back up the stairs when I heard the front door open. Footsteps, multiple. "Mrs. Mitchell," a male voice, not Jake. "FBI, we have a warrant." I emerged from the basement to find 4 men in suits in my living room. One of them held up a badge. It looked real. But after the Civic Data man's visit, I didn't trust anything. "Warrant for what?" I asked. "Possession of stolen classified material. Conspiracy to publish state secrets. possible involvement in foreign espionage. I would have laughed if I wasn't so scared. I'm a 72-year-old history teacher. You're the widow of Thomas Mitchell, who had security clearance through his consulting work. We believe he removed classified material before his death. He was an accountant. He was also a defense contractor with access to federal voting systems. That was news to me. Thomas never mentioned anything about defense work. The senior agent badge read Special Agent Marcus Webb stepped closer. He was older than the others, maybe 50, gray hair at the temples. He looked tired. "Where are the files, Mrs. Mitchell?" "They were already taken. Didn't you send someone earlier?" The agents exchanged glances. "We didn't send anyone," Webb said. The oven timer beeped, piercingly loud in the sudden tension. My cookies were ready. I had 47 hours to expose the truth before the election. I was 72 years old. Jake came home 10 minutes later, finding me under technical custody. The FBI agents tore through every inch of my house, looking for anything I might have hidden. They found nothing, because there was nothing to find. Webb had me sit at the kitchen table, that same table where Jake and I had spread all our evidence, and asked questions for 2 hours. Where was I when Thomas died? Who had access to his files? Had I spoken to anyone about their contents? I remained silent, as was my right. Finally, close to midnight, Webb dismissed the other agents. When we were alone, Jake had been sent away. Warned not to leave the state, he leaned in. "Run," he whispered. I blinked. "What?" "You have maybe 47 hours before they actually send someone who won't ask questions. This warrant is fake. I'm real FBI, but I was sent here under false pretense to make you think you were protected." "I don't understand." "You don't need to, just listen. Your husband discovered something huge. He was right. I've been investigating this for 3 years through internal channels. I keep hitting walls. People who should be helping me are blocking me. Files disappear. Witnesses back down." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I have 2 daughters. One's 22, the other's 19. I want them to live in a country where their votes matter." His eyes were red. "I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution, not this, whatever this has become." He slid a small flash drive across the table. I took it. "Backup of your grandson's backup." He slipped it into my bag when I patted him down. "Smart kid." "You're not going to." "I'm going to report that I found nothing. I'm going to file my paperwork. I'm going to do my job. But when that election happens on Tuesday, and when the results match exactly the predictions nobody should be able to make, I'll know. And I'll have to live with the fact that I didn't do enough." He stood to leave. "Special Agent Webb," I called. "Why 47 hours?" "Because it's Monday night. The election is Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. After that, it doesn't matter what you expose. The result will be locked in." After he left, I held that tiny flash drive. All of Thomas's work. A lifetime of evidence. 47 hours to save democracy. I was 72 years old, arthritis in both knees, starting to forget names. But I'd been a teacher for 38 years. I knew how to make people pay attention. ACT 3, climax. The senator looked me in the eye and said, "Nobody will believe an old woman." Monday morning, 37 hours until polls closed. Jake had created accounts on every social media platform under fake names. Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. He'd prepared everything to upload simultaneously, documents, spreadsheets, analyses, everything. But I knew it wouldn't be enough. Files being dumped online by an anonymous account. They'd be called disinformation, deepfakes, Russian conspiracy theories, buried under the news cycle within hours. We needed a face, a real person willing to come forward. "Grandma, no," Jake pleaded. "Once you do this, there's no going back. They'll come after you with everything." "They're already coming." But publicly, you'll be. Crazy? I smiled. Jake, honey, I'm 72 years old. They already treat me like I'm crazy. The difference is that now I'm going to use it. I took Jake to my closet. In the back, in a dusty box, I found my old clothes from the 70s, patchwork jeans, a peasant blouse, and my protest jacket from when I marched against the Vietnam War. Let's give them a history teacher, I said. Let's give them an American grandmother. Let's give them a voter who's voted in every election for 52 years, and let's see how they handle that. 2 hours later, I was in front of a camera Jake had set up in the living room. Ring lights borrowed from his girlfriend's YouTube channel. Proper sound setup. It looked professional. I looked like what I was, an old woman, tired, angry. My name is Sarah Mitchell, I began. My voice cracked, but I held steady. I'm 72 years old. I was a history teacher in Millbrook, Ohio, for 38 years. I taught over 4,000 students about the Constitution, about the Founding Fathers, about what it means to live in a democracy. I kept my voice firm, looked straight into the camera. My husband, Thomas Mitchell, died 3 years ago. Before he died, he discovered evidence of systematic election manipulation on a national scale. Evidence that our elections are being controlled by algorithms designed to produce predetermined results. Evidence that your votes, our votes, don't matter anymore. I held up the flash drive to the camera. This device contains 1,847 documents proving this scheme, spreadsheets showing impossible patterns, contracts between private companies and election officials. Money flows through dozens of shell corporations, everything meticulously documented. I paused. This was the part that mattered. On Tuesday, you're going to vote. Some of you will vote for candidate A, some for candidate B, some for third parties. You'll feel good because you exercised your civic duty. You'll put on that I voted sticker and post selfies. I leaned forward. And none of it will matter, because the winner has already been decided, not by you, by an algorithm that can predict with 99.7% accuracy exactly how many votes each candidate will receive in each key district. Deep breath. So I'm releasing all of this publicly. Now, all the files will be available on multiple platforms within an hour. Download them, share them, verify for yourselves. I took off my glasses, cleaned them, an old habit, giving myself time to control my voice. They're going to call me crazy. They'll say I'm a confused old lady living in conspiracy theories. They'll point out that I'm technologically illiterate, that I don't understand modern voting systems, that my late husband was suffering from dementia, and I merely found his ramblings. I put my glasses back on. So be it. But ask one question. When the results come in Tuesday night and when they match the predictions that supposedly nobody could make, ask yourselves, is it coincidence or is it exactly what I'm saying? Jake posted the video simultaneously on 47 platforms at 10:37 a.m. Eastern. By 10:45, my daughter Rebecca called. Mom, her voice was broken. Mom, what did you do? I uploaded the files to 3.7 million strangers. They became my army. The internet is a strange thing, unpredictable, temperamental. Sometimes videos go viral for stupid reasons. A cat, a dance, someone falling. Other times, important content gets buried, ignored, lost in the noise. We didn't know which fate would be ours. For 2 hours, nothing happened. Views trickled in slowly. 100, 500, 1,000. Jake paced the floor, obsessively refreshing analytics. Grandma, I don't know. Maybe we need to. Then Reddit caught it. Someone posted on Our Politics with the title, Holy shit, teacher's dead husband uncovered election fraud. She's releasing everything. Within 10 minutes, it had 10,000 upvotes. Then Twitter. A verified account with 2 million followers. Everyone needs to see this. Doesn't matter what you believe politically. Watch this. Then TikTok, where someone cut the moment where I say nobody will believe an old woman over dramatic music. By 2 p.m., we had 3.7 million views. By 4 p.m., 12 million. By 6 p.m., my video was trending in 47 countries. But it wasn't just the numbers, it was the people. A 68-year-old woman in Texas posted her own video response. I'm Sarah's age. I've voted every election since 1972. I believe her. An 82-year-old veteran in Arizona fought for this country, won't let it be stolen by algorithms. College students, teachers, factory workers, nurses, plumbers, people who would never meet who had violently different political opinions, all united around one idea. Our votes should matter. But the backlash came too. A TV network called it ELDRGATE, a conspiracy theory led by a confused elderly woman. A fact-checking company listed my claims as mostly false. The mysterious David Carson from Civic Data Solutions gave a televised interview. This poor woman is clearly suffering from grief. Her husband died tragically, and she's processing it through elaborate fantasies. We only wish her peace. Jake showed me the headlines. I sat quietly reading each one. Grandma, some of these comments are cruel. Let them talk, I said. The more they deny, the more people ask why. Why does a data company care about a crazy old lady from Ohio? If I'm so harmless, why are they putting billionaire CEOs on late-night shows to discredit me? Jake smiled. Where'd you learn that? Teachers have always been trolled, honey. We just didn't call it that in 1985. But then things got serious. The moment I realized they were tracking my every move through my pacemaker. It was 8 p.m., 13 hours until voting started, 23 until results started coming in. I was in the kitchen making dinner soup, nothing fancy, when my chest tightened. Not pain exactly, more of a squeeze, like my pacemaker was pulsing out of rhythm. Thomas had convinced me to get it 3 years ago after I started having arrhythmia. Sarah, you need to be around for our grandkids, he'd said. Now I wondered what else he knew. Jake, I called, can you look something up for me? He came running. Are you okay? You look pale. Pacemakers, can they be hacked remotely? He stared at me. Why would you? Oh no. Answer the question. He typed furiously. His face went green. Yes, since 2017, researchers have shown that many implanted cardiac devices have security vulnerabilities. They can be accessed wirelessly for diagnostics, but that also means, in theory, someone with the right tools could alter settings, make my heart stop. Grandma, we need to go to the hospital, now. But before we could leave, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mrs. Mitchell, the voice was digitally distorted. Feeling some discomfort, what a shame. Medical devices are so delicate, one wrong click and the line went dead. My chest tightened again, harder this time. I fell, grabbing the table. Jake caught me. Grandma. Hospital, I gasped. Now. As we rushed to the car, Jake on the phone with 911, a distant part of my mind thought, this is how they get rid of inconveniences. Not dramatic murders, just medical failure. Old woman with a bad heart. Tragic but not suspicious. Almost clever, but not clever enough. In the ER, while doctors worked on my pacemaker, resetting it to default settings and disabling wireless functionality, Jake posted an update. They just tried to kill my grandmother through her pacemaker. We're in the ER, she's okay. This is how far they'll go. Sarah Mitchell saved democracy. 40 million views in 2 hours. They froze my bank accounts. My neighbors started leaving food on my porch. Tuesday, election day. I was released from the hospital at 5 a.m. Jake wanted me to stay, but I refused. I had something to do. We got home to discover my bank account frozen, all of it, pending investigation into financial crimes. They couldn't touch my Social Security because it was federal, but everything else, savings, investments, Thomas's modest checking account, inaccessible. My credit card declined. Health insurance temporarily suspended. Cell phone account scheduled for shutoff by end of day. They were systematically cutting me off from civil society. Jake was frantic. "Grandma, I have money, I can." "You think they won't do the same to you?" 5 minutes later, his account was frozen too. We sat in the living room, stunned, when the doorbell rang. I didn't answer, didn't trust who it might be. But then it rang again, and again. Finally, I peeked through the window. It was Marta, my 68-year-old neighbor. We'd known each other for 40 years. She was holding a casserole dish. I opened the door. "I saw the news," she said simply. "Made lasagna. Also, Tom from number 47 said your account's frozen. He's a banker, said this is illegal as hell. He's filing paperwork." Tears pricked my eyes. "Marta, you don't have to." "Of course I do. Also, the neighborhood association email list. All 47 households. We set up a chain. Anyone who needs anything, we've got it. Bill from number 33 is a lawyer. Janet from 19 works for Verizon, said she'll keep your phone active no matter what the system says." She handed me the casserole. "You taught 3 of my kids in school, Sarah. You taught them that citizens need to speak up when they see injustice. Well, we're speaking up." Throughout the day, more neighbors came. Food, money, offers of help. People I barely knew offered to drive Jake wherever he needed to go. My neighborhood, this small slice of middle-class Ohio suburbia, had become my fortress. At 11 a.m., I turned on the TV. Election coverage, of course, but on every channel eventually it came back to me. CNN, Ohio teacher at center of election fraud claims remains defiant. Fox News, questions raised about elderly woman's allegations. MSNBC, grassroots movement forms around Sarah Mitchell. There were protests springing up spontaneously, people at state capitals holding signs, "Count every vote for real." TikTok kids live streaming their voting experiences, comparing actual machines to those described in Thomas's documents. I'd become something I never imagined, a symbol. At 7 p.m. Eastern, the polls started closing. ACT4, fall. My own daughter stopped answering my calls. They got to her first. I was wearing my old protest jacket, sitting in front of the TV, when Rebecca called. My daughter, the one who'd still been talking to me before all this started. "Mom," her voice was cold, "I need you to stop." "Rebecca." "Millie is being harassed at school. 6-year-olds know who my mother is. They ask if my mom is crazy, if she's a traitor. Jen called me, she hasn't called in years, just to scream at me about you embarrassing the family." "Rebecca, I'm sorry that Millie." "No, you're not. If you were, you wouldn't have done this. You could have gone to authorities quietly, could have hired a lawyer. But no, you had to make a grand show. Why? Because you're bored, because you miss being in front of a classroom." Her words cut, but not as much as what came next. "I lost my job today. Corporate downsizing," they said, "but we know why. They got pressure, because my mother is on TV calling the government corrupt." "Rebecca, I never wanted." "Millie asked me if Grandma's going to prison. You know what I said? I said I hope not. But you know what, Mom? Part of me hopes you do, because then at least this would be over." She hung up. Jake, who'd heard everything, put a hand on my shoulder. "She didn't mean it. She's scared." "She meant every word," I whispered. But he was right about one thing: she was scared. Because they'd gotten to her, destroyed her livelihood, threatened her child. This is what I'd done to my own family. I stood alone in that voting booth, knowing it might be my last act. I hadn't voted yet. With everything happening, I'd completely forgotten. "Grandma, don't even try," Jake said. "You can't go out in public, you'll be recognized." That's exactly why I need to go. I put on my jacket, grabbed my wallet. Even though my cards were frozen, my ID still worked. The polling place was 6 blocks away. Normally I'd drive, but my car had been impounded the night before. "Registration irregularities," they said. Sure. So I walked. It was a long walk for a 72-year-old woman with bad knees. Every step hurt, but people along the way recognized me. Some turned their faces. Others shouted support. A teenager followed me with his phone, live streaming. When I reached the polling location, the same elementary school where I'd voted for 40 years, there were news cameras waiting. And protesters, both sides. Sarah Mitchell is a hero. Sarah Mitchell is a traitor. Count every vote. Lock her up. Police officers formed a line, keeping them separated. One officer recognized me. I'd taught his son. He nodded, letting me through. Inside, it was blessedly quiet, just the soft hum of electronic equipment. Poll workers avoided my eyes. When I got to the voting booth, it felt surreal. This small box of privacy, this act I'd performed countless times. Maybe for the last time as a free woman. I looked at the screen, the names, the choices. If I was right, if Thomas was right, it didn't matter which button I pressed. The algorithm had already decided. But pressing mattered anyway. Because some actions aren't about outcome, they're about character. I made my choices, all of them, even the local races most people skip. Then I pressed cast ballot. The machine beeped. Your vote has been recorded. Or had it? The FBI agent whispered run as he handcuffed me. I didn't. They were waiting when I came out of the polling place. Not the real FBI this time. Local police, 6 officers, an arrest warrant. "Sarah Mitchell, you're being arrested for." The list was long: theft of federal property, disclosure of classified information, conspiracy. By the end, I wasn't even paying attention. I offered my wrists. The crowd outside exploded, both sides screaming, cameras flashing, Jake trying to get to me being held back by officers. "It's okay," I shouted to him. "It's okay." But it wasn't. As they led me to the police car, Special Agent Webb appeared. He wasn't in uniform, civilian clothes, looked exhausted. When the local cops weren't looking, he leaned in. "Run," he whispered. "Run now, I'll give you 20 seconds, go." I looked at him. This man, this federal agent, risking everything to give me a chance. "No," I said softly, "I'm done running." His hands shook as he handcuffed me. "Why?" he whispered. "Because somebody needs to stand still and say, enough." They thought breaking me would be easy. They forgot I survived the 60s. The cell was gray, small, smelled like disinfectant and despair. I sat on the narrow bunk, hands still shaking from adrenaline, and laughed. Couldn't help it. The absurdity of it all. Sarah Mitchell, who'd driven carpool and baked brownies for bake sales, sitting in a cell like a common criminal. My cellmate, a woman in her 30s with purple hair and tattoos, looked at me. "Hey, you're that election lady from the internet." "I am." "Holy shit," she sat up studying me. "You for real? Like all that stuff about hacked votes, it's real?" "I believe so." "Damn," long pause. "So like, they put you in here to shut you up?" "Probably." She laughed hard and bitter. "Yeah, good luck with that. You know how many people are posting about you right now? My boyfriend just texted me, you're trending #1 worldwide. Worldwide. Free Sarah." She showed me her smuggled phone. It was true. My face everywhere. Variations of the same message. They arrested her. They're trying to silence her. Don't let it work. "They thought arresting me would make me look guilty," I whispered. But it did the opposite. It made them look desperate. ACT 5, Resolution. The courtroom was silent when I stood up. I wasn't supposed to speak. The bail hearing was scheduled for Wednesday morning, 20 hours after I was arrested, 12 hours after election results started coming in. They didn't give me access to news, but I could feel it. The tension in the air, guards whispering, shift changes happening earlier than normal. Something was wrong, or terribly right. When they brought me into the courtroom, I was wrapped in an orange jumpsuit, no makeup, hair disheveled. I looked exactly like what I was, an old woman exhausted beyond words. The courtroom was packed, media in the gallery, Jake in the front row, eyes red from no sleep, Marta and half a dozen neighbors, complete strangers wearing shirts with my face on them. The judge, Honorable Patricia Akoi, a woman in her 50s with a stern expression, reviewed the charges. Mrs. Mitchell, do you understand the gravity of the crimes you're being charged with? Yes, Your Honor. Do you have representation? A man stood up. I'd never seen him before. Stuart Weinberg, Your Honor, ACLU legal team. We're representing Mrs. Mitchell pro bono. The prosecution, a young prosecutor who looked as sleep-deprived as I was, argued that I was a flight risk, a danger to national security. Weinberg argued that I was a 72-year-old retired teacher with no passport, no criminal record, who'd exercised my constitutional right to speak on matters of public interest. It went back and forth, legal, monotonous. Then Judge Akoi paused. The court will note, she said carefully, that unusual events occurred last night as election results came in. The entire room held its breath. Specifically, discrepancies appeared between predicted and actual results, major discrepancies, in multiple states. My heart raced. News organizations were forced to retract predictions made with 99% confidence. Political analysts were caught off guard, and most curiously, she paused, the discrepancies follow patterns precisely identified in documents leaked by Mrs. Mitchell as indicators of manipulation. I looked at Jake. His eyes were wide. I'm not saying I believe Mrs. Mitchell's allegations, Judge Akoi continued, but I am saying that serious questions have been raised that merit serious investigation. Investigation that can't happen with the primary whistleblower in a jail cell. She banged the gavel. Bail granted, own recognizance. Mrs. Mitchell, you're free to go. The courtroom exploded. I looked at the cameras and said what 300 million people were thinking. Outside the courthouse, there were hundreds of people waiting, maybe 1,000, cameras everywhere. Weinberg tried to usher me away through a back exit, but I stopped. No, I told him, they deserve to hear from me directly. I walked to the microphones, Jake at my side holding my elbow to steady me. Camera flashes blinded, questions shouted from all directions. I waited until they quieted. I am Sarah Mitchell, I began. My voice cracked, but I held steady. Some of you think I'm a hero, some think I'm crazy, some think I'm a traitor. I paused, looking directly at the cameras. I'm just a citizen who voted faithfully for 52 years, a citizen who believed that every vote counts. Shaky breath. Last night, something extraordinary happened. The election results didn't match the predictions. The same predictions that theoretically nobody could make. The same ones my late husband documented. The same ones they said were impossible. I leaned forward. Why didn't they match? Two possibilities. Either the manipulation my husband discovered was real, and exposing it forced them to turn it off, allowing real votes to count. Or, I smiled softly, maybe I'm just crazy and it was all coincidence. The crowd murmured. But ask yourself this, if it's coincidence, why did they arrest me? Why did they freeze my bank accounts? Why did they try to kill me through my pacemaker? Why did they use every government resource to silence me? My voice grew stronger. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if they'll prosecute me. I don't know if I'll go to prison. I don't know if my allegations will be proven or discredited. I took off my glasses, cleaned them, giving myself a moment to control emotion. But I know this. 140 million Americans voted yesterday. Each one walked into a booth believing their voice mattered. If I raised enough doubt, caused enough reaction to make whoever was manipulating our system stop, even for one election, then every scratch, every wound, every broken relationship was worth it. I put my glasses back on. My husband Thomas died 3 years ago. I don't know if it was murder or accident, but I know he died believing that truth matters, that democracy is worth fighting for, that ordinary citizens have an obligation to speak up when they see injustice. Tears ran down my face now. I didn't try to hide them. He was right, and I'll spend every day I have left honoring that belief. I turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Oh, and to anyone thinking about not voting in the next election because it doesn't make a difference. I looked straight at the camera. Last night we proved it does. When enough people pay attention, when enough people care, when enough people demand their voices be heard, the system has to respond. I smiled through the tears. We're more powerful than we think. We just need to remember it. The judge started crying. I knew we had won. The following weeks were frantic. The Department of Justice opened a formal investigation into election security. 3 CEOs of voting technology companies resigned for personal reasons. Civic Data Solutions declared bankruptcy after its largest contracts were canceled. Congressional committees were formed, hearings scheduled. And Special Agent Marcus Webb, that FBI agent who'd whispered for me to run, testified before Congress about systematic obstruction of his internal investigations. But the strangest thing, the election results were certified. The winner was inaugurated, and for the first time in 3 election cycles, nobody, not one side, not the other, questioned the legitimacy. Because everyone had been watching. Everyone had been paying attention. The mere threat of exposure had been enough to ensure that, this time, votes were counted honestly. We don't know if there was manipulation in previous elections. Congressional investigations continue. They might take years. They might never produce conclusive proof. But something changed. In January, I was called to testify before the Senate Select Committee on Electoral Integrity. I flew to Washington, first time on a plane in 10 years. Jake came with me. The hearing room was intimidating. High ceilings, dark wood, the weight of history pressing down on everything. I was sworn in, sat before the microphone. Senator Katherine Harrison, 73 years old, serving since before I was a teacher, led the questioning. I expected hostility, disdain, that "how dare you question your government" attitude so many politicians have. Instead, she said, "Mrs. Mitchell, before we begin with formal questions, I want to say something personally." She paused, and I saw her hands trembling slightly. I've served in the Senate for 47 years. I believed, always believed, that I was serving the will of the people, that the elections I won reflected the genuine desire of my constituents. Her voice cracked. If your allegations are true, even partially, then I may have been perpetuating a corrupt system unknowingly. I may not have actually been elected for some of those victories. That, she paused, wiping her eyes, that destroys me. She looked straight at me. So thank you for your courage, for refusing to stay quiet, for reminding us that democracy requires eternal vigilance, and for reminding me why I got into politics in the first place. I wasn't the only one crying in that room. My grandson's last text message, "Make them pay, Grandma," I did. Jake didn't have any last text message. He's alive, well, completed his computer science degree. But he changed. He took a job at a nonprofit dedicated to election transparency. much lower salary than he could make in the private sector. But every morning, he wakes up knowing he's building systems that make it harder to steal votes. "Grandma," he told me a few months after everything, "Grandpa taught you that truth matters. You taught me that being old doesn't mean being powerless. But you know what I learned watching you go through this?" "What?" "That systems only have the power we give them. They work because we assume they're inevitable, but they're not. One single person willing to say, 'No, this isn't right,' can break the spell." He hugged me. "You broke the spell, Grandma." Rebecca eventually started speaking to me again. It took 6 months. She'd lost her job, been harassed, her daughter had suffered at school. But she called me on a Tuesday in March. "Mom," she said, "Millie has a school assignment about women in history who fought for change. She wants to write about you." My throat tightened. She isn't angry at me. She's 6. She doesn't understand everything, but she understands that her grandmother did something difficult because it was right. And, Rebecca paused, "I finally understand too." "Rebecca." "I was wrong. I was scared and angry, and I blamed you for things that weren't your fault. You didn't make those people attack my family. You exposed a corrupt system and the system lashed back. That's different." She took a shaky breath. "And I'm proud of you, finally. I'm proud to have a mother who didn't sell out, who didn't stay quiet when it would have been easier. I want Millie to grow up knowing her grandmother, the real one, not the scared version who stayed quiet." We cried together for an hour. Marta, my neighbor, started a movement. She called it Sarah's Army, though I begged them to change the name. They didn't. Now there are chapters in 47 states. Older citizens, people the system assumed were too tired, too out of touch, too irrelevant, organizing, monitoring elections, fact-checking data, demanding transparency. The most powerful demographic, it turns out, is people who have lived long enough to recognize patterns, who have enough time to pay attention, and who have little enough to lose that they can't be easily intimidated. "You freed something," Marta told me at one of the monthly chapter meetings we now hold in my living room. "We all felt it, that something was wrong, but we didn't know what, or if we were imagining it, or if it would matter if we spoke up." She gestured at the group, 23 women and men, ages 62 to 89, spread across my house with laptops and smartphones and fierce determination. "You showed us it matters, that we have to matter, because if we stop paying attention, if we stop demanding better, then who will?" It's been 2 years now. I'm 74 years old. My arthritis has gotten worse. Memory isn't what it was. I forget names sometimes, though I never forget why I started all this. Congressional investigations have produced some results. New laws were passed requiring paper audits, transparency in voting algorithms, limits on voter data collection. Not perfect, but better. Some people were indicted. Most of the big fish escaped, they always do, but the system was exposed. The veil was lifted. And people are watching now. Voter turnout rates have increased, especially among young people, who were energized by the idea that their voices actually can make a difference, and among the elderly, who realize that invisibility can be power when used correctly. I give talks sometimes. Schools, libraries, town halls. I talk about Thomas, about what he discovered, about why ordinary citizens must remain vigilant. But mostly I talk about this. It's fall 2027 now. The 2028 presidential election looms on the horizon. And every time I watch the news, I see candidates being forced to answer questions about election transparency. I see monitoring organizations checking every aspect of voting systems. I see citizens, millions of them, refusing to simply trust, insisting on verifying. The system is no longer invisible. And that, more than any trial, more than any prison sentence, is the real victory. Today I sat in my kitchen, same floral curtains, same old table, and thought about Thomas. He knew that discovering this would probably kill him. He must have known, but he documented everything anyway, because some truths are too important to die with you. You were right, I whispered to the empty space where he used to sit. Votes matter, they all matter, and it was worth fighting for. My phone buzzed, text from Jake. Grandma, did you see? New law about voting system security just passed the Senate. 8911. It's named after Grandpa. Thomas Mitchell Election Integrity Act. Tears ran down my face. Not from sadness, from something more complicated. Pain and pride and exhaustion and triumph all mixed together. So let me say something to anyone listening to this. They want you to believe you're powerless, that the system is too big, too complicated, too corrupt to change, that your voice, your singular voice, can't make a difference. It's a lie, the biggest lie they ever told. Because the system runs on your silence, your resignation, your belief that nothing matters, so why try? I'm a retired history teacher, 74 years old, arthritis in both knees. I wear reading glasses and forget where I put them. It takes me 20 minutes to climb stairs. And I broke the system. Not alone, not entirely, but I broke it enough to let light in. If I can do that, if an angry old woman from Ohio with her dead husband's laptop can force the most powerful government in the world to back down, then what else is possible? What else are we assuming is immutable, that's merely invisible? What other lies are we accepting, because questioning would seem crazy? They told me my vote didn't matter. They were wrong. And I proved it the only way that matters. By making them scared enough to try to stop me. Because you don't spend millions of dollars, don't freeze bank accounts, don't try to kill someone through a hacked pacemaker, unless they're a real threat. They made me invisible for 72 years. Then I used that invisibility as a weapon. And when they finally saw me, when they could no longer ignore the old woman with the truth, it was too late. The truth was already out there. And truth, it turns out, can't be arrested. Can't have its accounts frozen. Can't be scared into silence. Truth just is. And once enough people see it, once enough people refuse to look away, the world changes. That's what I want you to remember. Not my name, not the specific details of this particular case. But this. Every system of power depends on your tacit participation, your silent agreement, your belief that you can't make a difference. The moment you stop believing that, the moment one single person stands up and says, "No, this isn't right, and I'm going to do something about it," everything can change. It won't be easy. It won't be safe. You'll lose things, relationships, money, comfort. But you'll gain something more important. You'll gain yourself back. Thomas used to say, "Sarah, you treat every vote like it's going to save the world." He was right. Because it can. Not magically, not individually, but collectively, when enough people believe it matters, when enough people pay attention, when enough people refuse to be silenced. Then every vote, every voice, becomes part of something larger. Becomes democracy. Not the idealized version we teach in history books, but the real version, messy, difficult, requiring constant vigilance. The version that dies the moment we stop fighting for it. So this is my challenge to you. Find your own truth, your own laptop in the basement, your own thing you know is wrong but everyone assumes is normal. And speak about it. Doesn't matter if you're young or old, rich or poor, powerful or invisible. Especially if you're invisible. Because as I learned, invisibility is power when you know how to use it. I'm 74 years old now. I don't know how many years I have left. The doctor says my heart, even with the fixed pacemaker, isn't what it used to be. But I know this. When I die, I'll die knowing I made a difference. That I stood up when it would have been easier to stay quiet. That I honored my husband's memory in the only way that mattered. That I taught my grandson, and maybe millions of others, that ordinary citizens have extraordinary power when they refuse to accept the status quo. And that, for one brief and shining window of time, I made those people who thought they had all the power afraid of me, a 72-year-old history teacher. With the truth. They told me my vote didn't matter. They were wrong. Dead wrong. And now the whole world knows it. Epilogue. 3 years later. It's election day again, 2028. I'm sitting in the same kitchen, same curtains, same table. But everything has changed. Jake is married now. His wife, Lynn, is a data scientist working on secure voting systems. They met at a conference on electoral integrity. Rebecca and Millie are coming over later. Millie is 9 now, wants to be a social justice lawyer when she grows up. Doesn't know exactly what that means, but knows it involves fighting for people nobody listens to. I wonder where she got that from. Marta rings the doorbell. She and 6 other neighbors are picking me up. We're going to vote together like we have every election since that day. Sarah's Army, the media still calls it. The name stuck despite my protests. But it's more than that now. It's a movement, a reminder, a perpetual test that democracy isn't something we have. It's something we do. Every day. With every choice. With every voice raised. With every truth spoken even when it scares us. I put on my jacket, not the old protest one. That's in a museum now, on display next to Thomas's files, and head out. The sun is bright, November air crisp but not cold. And as I walk to the elementary school where I'll vote for the 55th time in my life, I see something that makes me stop. A campaign poster in someone's yard. Not for a candidate, for us. It shows a photo of me from that day outside the courthouse. Hair disheveled, eyes red, but looking straight at the camera with something unshakable. Below it just 4 words. Your vote counts, really. I smile. Thomas wherever. Continue. You are, I hope you can see this. I hope you know you didn't die in vain. That the files you left behind, the truth you died for, wasn't buried with you. I hope you know that we made a difference. And then Sarah Mitchell, 74 years old, retired history teacher, grandmother of 5 ordinary citizen who did something extraordinary. Goes to vote. Because it still matters. It always mattered. And it always will. The end. Author's note, this is a work of fiction, but the questions it raises are real, the systems it describes are possible, and the power it suggests you have. That's absolutely real. Use it. Final reflection. I cast my ballot. The machine beeps, that same electronic chirp I've heard for 20 years now. Your vote has been recorded. And this time I believe it. Not because the system is perfect, it never will be. Not because corruption has been eliminated, it never will be. But because enough people are watching now, enough people care, enough people remember that democracy isn't a gift given to us by our founders. It's a responsibility passed down through generations, requiring each of us to guard it, protect it, fight for it. Outside the polling place, I see them. The young people with their phones, live streaming their voting experience. The elderly volunteers checking registration rolls with reading glasses perched on their noses. The poll watchers from both parties, eyeing each other suspiciously but united in one thing, making sure the process is honest. This is what we built. Not a perfect system, but a watched one. Not a guaranteed democracy, but a vigilant one. Jake meets me outside with Lynn. They're holding hands, looking at me with expressions I can't quite read. Pride, maybe, or worry, Probably both. How'd it go, Grandma? Jake asks. Like it should, I say. Boring, normal, exactly as it's supposed to be. He laughs. You made voting boring again. That's actually kind of amazing. That was always the goal, wasn't it? For it to be so secure, so transparent, so trustworthy that the most exciting thing about Election Day is the "I voted" sticker. Lynn squeezes my hand. Thank you, she says quietly. For what you did, I know it cost you. I think about that, what it cost. Thomas, though I'd have lost him anyway. Rebecca's job, though she found a better one. My privacy, though I never wanted to be famous. My comfortable invisibility, though it turned out I didn't need it. It cost less than staying silent would have, I say finally. That would have cost me myself. We walk home together, 3 generations. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows on the sidewalk, those same sidewalks where I've walked for 50 years, where I taught my daughters to ride bikes, where I held my grandchildren's hands on their first days of school. Nothing has changed. Everything has changed. My phone buzzes. A message in the Sarah's Army group chat, now 847,000 members strong across all 50 states. MARTA polls are steady. Turnout looks good. No major irregularities reported. We did it again, folks. Followed by dozens of emoji responses. Flags, checkmarks, hearts. These people, strangers a few years ago, united now by the simple belief that their voices should matter, have become my second family. Actually, maybe my first family now, the one bound not by blood but by shared purpose. That evening, Rebecca comes over with Millie for our election night tradition. We order pizza, set up the TV, prepare for the long night of watching results trickle in. But before we turn on the news, Millie tugs my sleeve. Grandma, can I ask you something? Always, sweetie. At school, they're doing this project about heroes, real ones, not like superheroes, and I want to do mine about you. But, she pauses, chewing her lip in that way that reminds me so much of Rebecca at that age. Mommy said I should ask if that's okay first, because of, everything that happened. I look at Rebecca, her eyes are wet. Is it okay, Millie asks, are you a hero? I pull her onto my lap, getting harder as she gets bigger, but I manage. Here's what I think, Millie. Heroes aren't people who do extraordinary things. Heroes are ordinary people who do what's right even when it's hard, even when it's scary, even when everyone tells them not to. So, yes. So I think everyone can be a hero, including you. When you see something wrong at school, in your life, anywhere, and you speak up even though you're scared, that's being a hero. Did you get scared? Terrified? But you did it anyway. Because not doing it would have been scarier. Living in a world where I stayed quiet, that would have been the worst thing of all. She thinks about this, her face serious. Okay, she says finally. I'm going to write about you. And I'm going to write that being a hero means being scared but doing the right thing anyway. That's perfect, sweetie. She hugs me, then runs off to help Jake set up the pizza plates. Rebecca sits beside me. I'm sorry, she says, not for the first time, for how I reacted, for not understanding. You were protecting your daughter. I'd have done the same. No, she shakes her head. I was protecting my comfort, my security, my safe little world. You were protecting something bigger, democracy, truth, the future. She wipes her eyes. You were protecting Millie more than I was. I just couldn't see it yet. We sit in silence for a moment. I'm proud to be your daughter, she whispers. And that more than any news coverage, any award, any recognition, that makes everything worth it. The results come in slowly, as they always do. But this year, something is different. The predictions are all over the place. Different outlets calling different results, margins of error admitting they don't really know. It's chaotic. It's uncertain. It's beautiful. Because this is what democracy looks like when it's actually working. Unpredictable, human, real. Around midnight, when the winner finally becomes clear, there's no controversy, no accusations of fraud, no conspiracy theories trending. Just acceptance. Because everyone watched, everyone verified, everyone knew that this time, the votes were counted fairly. The losing candidate gives a gracious concession speech. The winning candidate promises to serve all Americans. It's almost boring. Just as it should be. I fall asleep on the couch around 1 a.m., surrounded by my family. Jake covers me with a blanket. I hear them whispering, trying not to wake me, but I'm not really asleep, just resting, listening. She did it, Jake says quietly. She actually changed the system. We all did. Marta's voice, she must have come over at some point. She just showed us how. Do you think it'll last, Rebecca asks, or will they find new ways? They'll try, Jake says. They always do, but now people are watching. Now people know what to look for. That's the real change. Not laws or regulations, awareness. And vigilance, Marta adds. Eternal vigilance, like Sarah always says. Like her husband used to say, Jake corrects. She's just carrying it forward. No, Rebecca says, and I can hear the smile in her voice. She's teaching us to carry it forward. That's the difference. Later, when everyone has gone home and Jake has driven me upstairs to bed, my knees won't handle stairs well anymore. I lie in the darkness and think about Thomas. I think about him in his bunker, discovering patterns that didn't make sense. I think about him choosing to document everything even though he must have known the risk. I think about him dying before he could see his work matter. But maybe he knew. Maybe in those last moments, pushing that lawn mower across our yard on an ordinary Saturday morning, he knew that truth has a way of surviving, of finding light, of reaching the people who need to hear it. Maybe he knew I'd find those files. Maybe he trusted me to do something with them. Or maybe, and this thought makes me smile in the darkness, maybe he had no idea. Maybe he just did what he thought was right and hoped for the best. Just like I did. Just like all of us have to do. My last thought before sleep takes me. They told me my vote didn't matter. But every vote mattered. Every voice mattered. Every single person who stood up and said, no, this isn't right, they all mattered. We didn't save democracy. Democracy doesn't get saved once and stay saved. We reminded people that democracy needs saving every single day. That it requires attention, effort, courage. That it's not a spectator sport. And that's a lesson worth teaching. Worth fighting for. Worth everything it cost. 6 months later, I'm sitting in that same kitchen when the letter arrives. Official government seal, Department of Justice. My hands shake as I open it. For a moment I'm terrified. Are they coming after me again? New charges, new threats. But it's not that. It's an invitation. To the White House. The new president, whoever won that election I helped make fair, wants to present me with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. For extraordinary courage in defense of democratic principles and unwavering commitment to electoral integrity. I read it 3 times. Then I call Jake. Grandma, that's amazing. You have to accept. Do I? What do you mean? It's the Presidential Medal of Freedom. It's also putting me on a pedestal, making me special. But Jake, that's the opposite of the message. I'm not special, I'm ordinary, that's the whole point. He's quiet for a moment. So what are you going to do? I think about it. I'm going to accept, but I'm bringing 50 people with me, all the ordinary citizens who helped, Marta, the neighbors, the lawyers who worked pro bono, the journalists who eventually covered the story, Agent Webb, even Rebecca for forgiving me. Can you do that? I have no idea, but I'm going to try. He laughs, of course you are. The White House. 2 months later. I stand in the East Room wearing my best dress, the one I bought for Jake's college graduation. Nothing fancy, just nice. Around me are my 50 guests, my army, my family. The president approaches with the medal. The room is silent except for camera clicks. Sarah Mitchell, the president says, on behalf of a grateful nation, for courage, integrity, and unwavering commitment to the principles upon which this country was founded. The medal is heavy, heavier than I expected, but not as heavy as staying silent would have been. When the ceremony ends and the photos are taken and the reception begins, a young woman approaches me, maybe 25, wearing a press badge. Mrs. Mitchell, can I ask you something? Of course. What do you want people to remember about all this, about what you did? I think about that question, really think about it. I want them to remember that I'm not extraordinary. I'm a 74-year-old woman with bad knees who found her dead husband's laptop and made a choice. Anyone could have done it. Anyone could do it now. But they didn't, you did. Because somebody had to, and it happened to be me. But next time, and there will be a next time because there's always a next time, it needs to be someone else. And someone else after that. That's how democracy works. Not through heroes. Through millions of ordinary people making small, brave choices. She scribbles notes. One more question. Do you think you change things permanently, or will the system find new ways to manipulate? Both, I say honestly. Systems always adapt. Corruption always finds new channels, but now people know what's possible. They know to watch. They know to question. They know they have power. And that's enough. It has to be, because it's all we've got. Present day. I'm 75 now. The medal sits in a box in my closet. I took it out once to show Millie, then put it away. It's not important. The work is important. Sarah's army is still going strong. We monitor every election. We fact-check claims. We teach digital literacy to seniors so they can spot manipulation. We've expanded into 37 countries. Jake and Lynn had a baby, named him Thomas. When I held him for the first time, I whispered, "Your great-grandfather was a hero, not because he did extraordinary things, but because he did ordinary things extraordinarily well. He paid attention. He documented. He cared." Little Thomas grabbed my finger with his tiny hand. "You live in a world that's a little bit better because of him," I continued, "and because a lot of people decided that better was worth fighting for." The baby yawned. "Your job," I told him, "is to keep fighting, in whatever way makes sense for your generation, because the fight never ends. It just changes forms." Sometimes, late at night, I still go down to the basement, to Thomas's bunker. It's been converted into Sarah's army headquarters now. Computers where his filing cabinets used to be, monitors where his charts hung, but the spirit is the same. People paying attention. People asking questions. People refusing to accept that systems are inevitable. I sit in his old chair and I talk to him. "We did it," I say. "Not perfectly, not permanently, but we did it." I imagine his response, that smile he'd get when I was being stubborn about something. "You were right," I tell him, "about everything, about votes mattering, about truth being worth the risk, about ordinary people having extraordinary power." The room is quiet except for the hum of electronics. "I miss you," I whisper, "every day. But I'm grateful too. Grateful that you left me something to fight for. Grateful that your death wasn't meaningless. Grateful that we get to keep teaching people together what you spent your life learning." I sit there for a while longer in the dark, in the quiet, in the space where everything started. And then I go upstairs. Because there's work to do. There's always work to do. They told me my vote didn't matter. They were wrong. Dead wrong. And I'll spend every day I have left proving it. Not for me. Not for glory or recognition or medals. But for every person who ever felt powerless. For every voice told it was too small to matter. For every citizen who wondered if one person could make a difference. Yes, you can. We all can. We just have to choose to. Final words from Sarah Mitchell, age 75, retired history teacher, grandmother, citizen, witness to democracy's fragility and its resilience. If you remember nothing else from my story, remember this. The system wants you to believe you're powerless. Your silence, your resignation, your belief that nothing you do matters, that's what keeps corrupt systems running. But you're not powerless. You never were. Every time you speak up when it would be easier to stay quiet, you're powerful. Every time you verify information instead of accepting it blindly, you're powerful. Every time you vote, knowing it might not change everything but refusing to let that stop you, you're powerful. I'm not special, I'm not a hero, I'm not extraordinary. I'm just someone who decided that staying quiet would cost more than speaking up. And if I can do that, if a 72-year-old widow with arthritis and bad memory can force a system to change, what can you do? What can we all do together? The answer, I think, is limited only by our courage to try. So try. Please. Try. The end. This story is dedicated to every ordinary person who did something extraordinary, to every teacher who taught students to think critically, to every elder who refused to be dismissed, to every citizen who looked at a corrupt system and said, "No more." Your vote matters. Your voice matters. You matter. Never forget it. Your vote counts. Truth matters. Ordinary heroes. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. Edmund Burke. Sarah Mitchell didn't do nothing. Neither should you.